Hi everyone and welcome. I am very pleased today to be joined by Gideon Levy, a very prominent Israeli journalist and columnist for Haaretz. And I would really look forward to picking your brains about what is happening in your part of the world. Uh, I thought maybe a good place we could start would be the objectives of Israel in Gaza. I know this is something you write about, but what do you see as being the main objectives of Israel? And do you see these objectives as being achievable?
Uh, I am so desperated that I don't know where to start. On one hand, I have the feeling that there are no real goals. In the beginning of this war or this attack, shall we call it a brutal attack and not a war? In the beginning, it was very clear that Israel wants to punish Gaza, not only Hamas. You know, the 7th of October was really a traumatic event in Israel, and there was the need to do something and to punish and to take revenge. But 19 months later, when you see that it continues, and it continues in a terrible intensity, only the last day there were almost 100 people killed, almost all of them innocent people, 22 children, just in the last day when we are talking now. You realize that genocide is the word. Now, it's not that Israel is planning a genocide, no, even not the government. But it's very clear that there's nothing cheaper than the life of the people in Gaza. And they are serving as toys in a game, mainly domestic politics game, in which Netanyahu and his government want to continue it as much as they can, and the world enables it. Netanyahu has his own agenda, and his partners has their own agenda. The partners of Netanyahu in the coalition have a very clear agenda. They want to see ethnic cleansing in Gaza. They want to see Gaza without Palestinians. It's very clear, and they don't hide it. With Netanyahu, it's more complicated because it's a combination of some ideological elements and obviously also some political elements, namely that as long as this war goes on, his government exists. The moment this war will be over, his government will fall apart. To think that thousands and tens of thousands of people are being killed by the time we are talking, and for so many months now, for domestic political reasons, this is devastating.
Is it, again, even if Israel puts everything into this, is it, can Netanyahu actually achieve this? I know Trump spoke about having every man, woman, and child removed from Gaza, but an ethnic cleansing of 2 million people at this scale, also given that neighboring countries aren't interested in taking them in, how do you see this as being realistic? Because it feels sometimes that Israel has, or Netanyahu at least, has painted himself in a corner by setting these objectives.
No, this will never happen. The transfer will never happen because it's practically not possible. But what Donald Trump did is legitimize transfer as a legitimate policy. It will never happen. And I said it from the first day. And this didn't trouble me so much because I knew it will never happen because nobody is going to accept those 2.3 million Palestinians of Gaza. But meanwhile, we are changing all our values, and meanwhile, hundreds and thousands of people are being killed, slaughtered. Now, those days that we are talking now are really, I can't exaggerate how dramatic they are because Trump is in the Gulf now, and I'm really waiting until now, he ignored Gaza. There are now 1.5 days that he's there, dramatic events, including the recognition of Syria and of the president of Syria and canceling the sanctions. Really good news, very good news, some kind of hope. But I don't see him being engaged to Gaza right now. He hardly mentions Gaza. Maybe tomorrow in Doha, maybe the day after. But the only one who can stop Israel right now is Donald Trump. And I have feeling that he is not going to do it, but I'm not sure. I still have some hope.
And what is the situation on the ground in Gaza now? Because you follow this fairly closely.
Yeah.
Is it, are we have, to what extent are the people now malnourished and yeah, well, are we looking at some escalation or intensification of the humanitarian crisis?
I'm sure, Glenn, that you know the answer by yourself. I mean, there are the statistics which are horrifying, the UN statistics. Every day you get new figures, but it's not only about the figures. I mean, it's very clear that starvation, every fifth person in Gaza is starving. Over 90% of the people of Gaza, if not 100%, don't get enough food. But I always think about individuals. I have a friend in Gaza with whom I used to work in Gaza for many, many years. He's 63 after a stroke, and he's diabetic and he needs insulin. And 1 week ago, he told me he was left with the last 2 drops of insulin. I didn't call him ever since then, but we know what happens to people in his condition when they don't have insulin. He is not an exception. He is Gaza. That's Gaza now. I don't think that both of us can imagine ourselves. What does it mean to live there when you get in a good day one piece of bread or one portion of rice a day, when your children are crying because they are starving, when there are no medicines, and above all, when Israel is continuing these bombardments? I don't understand. What's the purpose now to bomb them? What's the purpose? What's the end game? And there is no answer.
What's the impact, though, from this war on domestic society within Israel? Is it becoming normalized, or is there any opposition growing towards these policies, or is it mostly just opposition towards Netanyahu?
After the tragedy of Gaza, this is the most depressing thing because there is not a real opposition. There is an opposition to Netanyahu, very vocal, very devoted, and quite effective. There is a big protest to release the hostages. But many times when I listen to the Israeli alternative, to the Israeli so-called left or liberals, I come to the conclusion that in Gaza, there are only some dozens of people who live, namely the hostages. They are the only one who live in Gaza. They are the only victims of Gaza. Nobody talks about the millions of victims of Gaza. And not that I underestimate the tragedy of the hostages, it's horrible. But can we totally ignore there is not one single Zionist politician who speaks about the fate of Gaza, about the victims of Gaza, about the crimes that we are committing on a daily basis? Nobody in the entire political map. They all fight Netanyahu. They all fight for releasing the hostages, and they couldn't care less about the suffer of Gaza. This is, after the suffer in Gaza, the most depressing phenomena.
Well, there's also a lot of focus, as you suggested, on Netanyahu, though, with there's reports of internal divisions within Israeli societies, sorry, and also on the Israeli TV, you see former people from IDF, Mossad, who are more or less calling Netanyahu a traitor on TV. It's starting to feel almost yeah, language of almost like none of the civil war is a bit of a stretch, but is it moving in a very dangerous direction in terms of how the different political forces are turning on each other?
I don't think so, because the Israeli center and left are quite passive. They talk, they demonstrate, but they will never go to a civil war. It's not in their DNA. I can't even think about an individual who will go and do horrible things. I mean, all the political murders in the history of Israel were committed by the right wingers. All the violence was always by the right wingers. The left in Israel, for the good and maybe also for the bad, is never really violent. It is quite reluctant, maybe spoiled, maybe with manners. You decide how to define it. But I don't see a real danger of a civil war. And above all, let's remember that the differences between Netanyahu and his government and the alternative, the opposition, are smaller than it seems from the outside. They all agree about continuing the war unless you can release the hostages. But once the hostages will be released, the opposition has no objection to continue this war. They just want to see the hostages back, but then you can do whatever you want from their point of view. There is no real alternative about the occupation or the apartheid. They all agree about it. There is no Zionist Jewish politician in Israel who calls for ending the occupation or ending the apartheid or ending the crimes.
What does how does this affect the wider, not just the wider region, but the international system? How does is Israel, well, given the genocide in Gaza, is it seen as very problematic that many of its partners are, well, taking some more distance? Again, not so much the political class in Europe or the US, but you see among the public a huge shift, a bit alienation. Is this a big issue in Israel, or is it seen as something temporary that will perhaps blow over?
Both are not precise. What Israelis tell themselves is that the world is anti Semitic, that they are all against us no matter what we do, that they all hate us no matter what we do. And by this, that's the best protection shield, because then you are not accountable for anything. It's about the world who is anti Semitic. And therefore, people are less troubled by it. On the personal basis, I mean, there is some worry. I mean, most of the airlines don't fly into Israel right now, and there are all kinds of excuses, security, and so on. It's, I guess, for those who fly abroad, there are some inconvenient incidents in Europe. People try to hide their Israeli identity when they go abroad. There is the feeling that we should hide it, but there is no real shame for what we are doing. And there is no feeling of it's our fault, not the world's fault. Most of the Israelis are totally convinced that the world is anti Semitic. Nothing can be done about it. And we have to deal with it like we deal with bad weather.
How about the concern for, well, not adversarial states, but well, states such as Egypt or Jordan, who has government who, if not friendly, at least cooperative towards Israel, while a population which is more aggrieved when they look at what is happening in Gaza. Is there a concern that an very dissatisfied population there could force a changing government or at least government policy in either Egypt, Jordan, or other countries?
Look, Glenn, as long as there are not concrete steps which will affect any Israeli. And those steps were not taken by no one, not by the Arab world, and not by Europe, and not by the United States. Our life continues to be the same. Israelis are not paying a price for what's going on, or at least not a very concrete one. There is some cloud in the last 19 months over any Israeli. There are big concerns about the future, but the feeling is that it is inevitable, that we can't help it. That's the word. And as long as this is the belief, then it will not bring any change because, yeah, people are concerned, no doubt. People feel that something went wrong, no doubt. But they don't think that it's Israel's fault. By all means, not. Everything is justified. If you killed in the last 24 hours 22 children in Gaza, the average mindset would say we had no other choice. Maybe they deserve it because they would grow up into becoming terrorists. So we have to kill them. So there is no feeling that people take any kind of accountability or responsibility for Israel, for what Israel is doing. It's all about you, the world. You should be accused, not us.
How would this work? What do you see as a post-Cold War situation then? Because, as you said, if it was after October 7th, if Israel would have again struck hard and out of revenge or to punish, it, yeah, under it could be also justified under the need to deter similar attacks in the future, but then pulled back and said, mission completed. The purpose was revenge. It would be one thing, but given that this has been going on for so long now, uh, is it possible to, once the killing stops, you have hopefully at some point a permanent ceasefire, uh, to go back to the way things were, or will Israel demand full control over Gaza if they can't ethnically cleanse it? Or it seems, this will be difficult to put this thing back together.
I'm not sure it will be difficult. I'm more believing that it will be impossible. Things changed. I mean, on the 7th of October, Israeli society and Israel's public opinion changed dramatically. Namely, almost all the Israelis, with a small minority, believe that after the 7th of October, we have the right to do whatever we want. There are no limits, not legal and not moral. And there is no hope for any kind of peace, stability, coexistence, settlement with the Palestinians. It's off the table right now. And it will be very hard, if not impossible, to change it. Facing the fact that the Palestinians don't have their own leadership, they are lacking leadership for many years now, and lacking obviously also some kind of unity. As you know, they are divided and really lacking any kind of leadership, courageous leadership. It will be much easier for the Israelis to continue to believe that there is no partner, that they are not really human beings, and this might last for many, many years. It's really the 7th of October, except of the crimes of the 7th of October, also created some irreversible phenomena, which I don't see any kind of leadership in both sides being able to correct it.
But if this war continues, though, yeah, not just yeah, the human casualties, but are there any limitations on Israel? I know it can get all the weapons it wants from the Americans and the Europeans, but hasn't there been an exodus of people, economic challenges or decline, disruption to physical transportation corridors? Then because of Yemen. Is it possible? Is there like a economic crisis coming, or is this also, I guess, under control?
First of all, I don't know to explain it, but there is no economic crisis. There is many worries, but it should have come long time ago. So many reasons to face an economic crisis, and it doesn't come. I'm not an economist, and I have no explanation how life continues more or less the same. There is a very heavy cloud over Israelis and over Israel. People are troubled. People are desperate. People live, but who can live? Those who can are living, but it's not very easy to relocate. You have your jobs, you have your family, you have your language, you have your home. It's not so easy to live. So there is some wave outside, but I wouldn't exaggerate about it. Those are maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands. It's very hard to measure because you don't know, or those who leave might also come back very soon. The mood is very, very troubled, depressed, but this does not mean that Israel is moving outside of Israel. This does not happen. No, and I can't see it happening because it's practically not possible.
How about how serious is the arguments that there's might be tensions growing now between the military and the political class to some extent because with not just in Gaza but also because Israel now with the conflict with Lebanon, also the incursion into Syria, the fighting against Yemen, and also the potential of war with Iran, that the military has become somewhat overextended. Or is this, do you think this is also exaggerated?
You are a political scientist, and I studied political science many, many years ago. And we always asked ourselves, is a coup d'etat possible in Israel? Can it be that the army will take over? And we always answered that it's not needed because the army is powerful enough also without a coup d'etat. It's the first time that this friction or this tension between the government and the army is visible, and maybe the first time it exists in those parameters. Yes, there is more and more tension, but it will not get into a coup d'etat because the army in Israel is by far too obedient, and I don't see it happening. And I think that don't forget that many of the politicians are ex-generals in Israel. Don't forget that everyone is in the army in Israel. And there is no real army and civil society because it's very mixed in Israel. And the army is still admired, appreciated, and for sure being forgiven on any crimes. I will not be surprised if this government will soon legislate a law. They talked about it already, that it will be illegal to criticize the army in Israel. Yeah, the army is a holy cow in a way. This government tried to change it, but in a very twisted way. But in any case, I don't see the danger of a coup d'etat by the army, and I don't see those frictions between the army and the political level as something that should worry us, because I guess finally they will find a way to go together because they depend one on the other.
Um, Well, also, yeah, a key thing I want to ask about is it appears that yeah, Netanyahu would like to pull the United States into a war with Iran. Well, it seems to be quite open about this. How likely do you see this actually happening? And if Netanyahu, I guess, would be successful, is this something that the army is also cautious about, or would they see this as an opportunity? Again, from an outsider, it's unclear to me to what extent the yeah, Netanyahu and the military would have any differences in terms of how they view the potential of a war with Iran.
In the past, the army with some other defense agencies were the one who stopped Netanyahu of attacking Iran. There were more than once moments in which it was on the table and the military institutions said no. Right now, we are in a different stage because Netanyahu is much more militant than ever. He used to be very cautious about operating the army also. He did, until this war, he launched less wars than any other prime minister in Israel. And therefore, I had some support to him for a while. But I don't see it happening without any kind of green light from the United States. And the question is, will the Americans finally give a light, give a permission to Israel to go for it? Right now, Donald Trump keeps on speaking about a deal. I can only pray and cross my fingers that he will get the deal, which, by the way, will be the exact deal that the same Donald Trump canceled when he became president in his first term. But who cares? As long as it will be a deal, it will be safer for everybody and better for everybody rather than another military adventure, which nobody can tell how will it be concluded. And nobody also knows how much is possible. We don't know, can Israel really bomb all the nuclear facilities of Iran? I'm not sure it is possible at all. I can only hope that we will not get there, but there are no guarantees because we are in a crazy time. If Donald Trump will let Israel do it, Israel will do it.
Uh, but just circling back to Gaza, is again there's some optimism in terms of the US being able to strike or at least revive the old deal with Iran. But how about resolving Gaza? Is there any serious pathway at the moment to resolving this through negotiations, or is this yeah, or is there's no avenue there anymore?
No, there is, first of all, a way to stop the war and to withdraw from Gaza. It depends only on one person, Donald Trump. If he will wish that Israel will do it, Israel will do it within days, not weeks, because Israel is depending today on the United States like never before. Would he really use this leverage? It is possible to put an end to the war, to release all the hostages, and to withdraw from Gaza. The question is, what comes next? Okay, Israel is withdrawing from Gaza, the hostages are released, and then what? We are getting back to the siege. We are getting back to the situation in which 2.3 million people are living in a cage, and nobody has a plan. Nobody has a plan what to do with Gaza and who is going to run it. Hamas is there to stay. So we'll continue with Hamas. I mean, those are questions that nobody really deal with it seriously. And therefore, it is so depressing that any kind of future when you see that there is even no vision. Okay, you want to continue the war, you want to end the war, but what is your end game? Nobody knows.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there any end game here? But again, if you go down to the key question of how to resolve this, is there anyone in Israel who would support a common state with equal rights for all, or support a Palestinian separate state? Or is there, because it looks like the third option has to be again, going to war and ethnic cleansing, it's yeah, it's a bit strange. We're not closer to having any pathway towards any possible settlement besides, because as you said, any ceasefire now would merely temporarily stop the killing. But if they're put, as you said, back into cages, we're gonna end up in the same situation down the road.
Absolutely. And those alternatives are even not being discussed in Israel because nobody believes in any kind of settlement with Gaza. Nobody believes in any kind of settlement with the Palestinians, and for sure not the government. So it's really a limbo in which we continue to kill without any purpose and without any plan, and there is no horizon. There is no horizon. In my view, the two-state solution is a long time dead, and we have to realize it because of the 700,000 settlers. And if so, what is the alternative? People don't even discuss it in Israel. It's off the table for sure ever since the 7th of October. Where are we aiming? Where are we going to? You will not find one Israeli who will have an answer.
Well, it's it's I guess the main concern now is besides the genocide in Gaza, the possibility of this really exploding
Yes.
into a wider war. Do you, just as a final question, I guess, do you have any prediction on what's going to happen? Because we do see possibility of clashes between even Israel, Turkey. The situation in Yemen couldn't be resolved as we see now. Lebanon hasn't been solved. Iran, of course, is the big challenge, but do you have any expectations or predictions over the next few months, what to expect?
The horrible thing that it depends mainly on Donald Trump. The key is totally in his hands. And he is very hard to predict. And he can say one thing today and the next day to say the opposite. You know it in Europe, and we know it here in the Middle East. Right now, by the time we are speaking, and I'm following him in the Gulf, he seems like a pacifist. He seems like someone who can really make a change. But can I trust him? Can I trust that he will go all the way and really make a change? I can't. For sure, he's more promising than his predecessors like Donald Trump and like Barack Obama and Joe Biden, who spoke so wonderful and had such good ideas and did nothing, nothing. Just kept on supplying Israel with ammunition and arms and played exactly according to the Israeli demands without any conditions. This was a very sick relationship when Israel got everything it wanted without paying any price for anything it does, without any accountability, without any kind of sanctions for things which are worldwide recognized as crimes of war. So Donald Trump comes from a different direction, but to to trust him or to base a hope on him is unfortunately something very, very fragile and very, very far-fetched. But the coming days will be crucial, no doubt. I mean, would we talk in a week time, we will know more because in those days he can do something, and if he won't, we will know that we are doomed to continue with this war until God knows what will happen. But my main concern those days, all those strategic questions are very important. But by the end of the day, the most urgent thing is now to save the people of Gaza. Both of us, Glenn, have no idea what they are going through. And someone has to save them. And I don't know, I don't see who is going to save them.
Yeah, no, I share your pessimism on this. On one day, Trump is the peacemaker. The next day is calling for the complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza. So it's he goes a bit back and forth. Anyways, Gideon Levin, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your insights. So thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me. All the best.